Fantasy Strike. Should we talk about Fantasy Strike? Is it time for Fantasy Strike? I think it might be time for Fantasy Strike. I guess we've waited long enough. I guess we've waited long enough for Fantasy Strike. Sure. Okay, let's talk about Fantasy Strike. So, first we will do an introduction. If you don't know what Fantasy Strike is, we'll start with that. Damn, Katana Prime is a Fantasy Strike commentator? He really gets around. So, Fantasy Strike is a fighting game. This is the Fantasy Strike top 8 that was played at Frosty Faustings. Fantasy Strike is a fighting game that has been in early access for many years. Since, I don't know, man. How long has Fantasy Strike been in development for? At least since like 2015, right? As you can see, it is a very simple fighting game. That's the idea of Fantasy Strike. It was designed to be a fighting game that people can play and learn about fighting games from. You see, like the controls are very simple. The health bar is very simple. The moves are very simple. The characters are very straightforward. Yeah, I mean, it's not like Dragon Ball FighterZ, obviously, in terms of graphics. But this is what it was designed to be, right? Like, it was designed to be a simple, like, pick up and play, anyone can get into it fighting game. If you're wondering, probably looking at it already, some things look a little off. There are some features that you may notice are missing in Fantasy Strike, like crouching, for example, is not supported by Fantasy Strike. You cannot crouch. You also cannot dash, right? So the only movement is walk back, walk forward, and jump. That's the only movement that you can control your character with. Yeah. Simple, simple, simple. No, there are no lows. There are no lows and no overheads. No teabags. Teabags have been nerfed in Fantasy Strike. So, how do you mix people up? You can cross them up. It's a hold back to block game, so there are cross-up characters. Also, obviously, some characters have command grabs, and everyone has regular grabs. Yeah, I mean, there are mix-ups, of course. You know, there are ambiguous cross-ups, and some characters have special moves that will go, like, left-right. Yeah, there has been some criticism of Fantasy Strike that it is too simple. That it is so simple that it won't actually achieve its desired effect of teaching you how to play fighting games. Because there are some features that are in, like, every fighting game that are not in Fantasy Strike, right? Personally, I actually enjoy Fantasy Strike quite a bit. I think there's a lot to like about this game. I think the characters are actually really cool. The designs, like, the designs are very simple and straightforward, but they're very distinct, right? Like, every character is very well realized. You know what I mean? You can look at a character and tell what they're meant to do, and they have a very focused game plan. Like, you have Jaina here, who's the zoner, and you can see that she's just jumping over and shooting arrows. And Grave is like the Ryu character, right? Yeah, Dive Kick is the game that you can only jump and attack. Dive Kick is a story for another day. But yeah, like, I enjoy Fantasy Strike. There's a lot to like about it. It has really good rollback netcode, which is a big plus. It has a pretty good tutorial. It has a practice mode that's ambitious, if not perfect. The music is also very nice. So I think Fantasy Strike overall is pretty good. If Fantasy Strike was at a tournament, I would enter it. If it became a consistent, like if Fantasy Strike showed up as a side tournament at many majors, I would play it. I would. Yeah, I would play it on stream. if it had more than like 2 players. But this is the problem. So this is the first issue with Fantasy Strike, okay? It officially fully released earlier this year, or maybe even late last year. I don't remember. It was a while ago. It might have been quite a while ago now. After being in early access for like 5 years, right? It finally released fully. And it was $30. $30 on Steam. That is like, that's a tall order. You know what I mean? It's free to play now, but it was not when it launched. We'll get to it. So it launched, it was $30. And yeah, exactly, right? Like, I've been saying it's fun. It's a good game. It has some interesting ideas. Worth spending $30 on? I don't know, man. Like, that's a lot, right? I'll check it out for free. Maybe we can actually fight. We'll get to it. We'll hold that thought. Hold that thought. We'll get there. Hold that thought. So look. So yeah, problem 1 was that it was $30. Fantasy Strike, also not a perfect game. Some other little quirks, we'll say, is that its menus are very familiar. So raise your hand if you've ever played Overwatch. How? Show of hands. Let's see them. Keep them up. How many people have played Overwatch? Yeah, okay. Right. I'm sure most people have played Overwatch, or at least seen Overwatch. So for those who haven't, let's have a quick refresher of some Overwatch menus. So right, so like, we got the Overwatch main menu, we've got the Overwatch mode select, we've got the Overwatch heroes, the Overwatch options menu. You know what? Actually, maybe the best way to do this would be to like turn on Fantasy Strike, because I do have the game. So let's actually pull up Fantasy Strike and let's take a look at this game, shall we? Okay. So take a look at Fantasy Strike and let's see if you notice any similarities. You see it? Do you see it? Here, let's have some direct comparisons. Ready? Fantasy Strike, Overwatch. Fantasy Strike, Overwatch. But there's more. There's more, right? If it was just the main menu, then that wouldn't be so bad. But let's go into the options menu. Options. it really it's really very, very similar. Let's see. So we've got Fantasy Strike, Overwatch. Fantasy Strike, Overwatch. Like, it even has the same crinkly background. Yeah, it's the same font and everything. The only difference is that Overwatch has more options. Right? Like, if I do this, you probably will lose track of which one is which. But we can keep going. We can keep going. Let's see, what else have we got here? Oh yeah, the good old the mode select, right? How yeah, here it is. Like, it just like every single menu is identical. Oh wow, I actually just clicked on the Overwatch picture because I thought it was Fantasy Strike. I mixed myself up in the middle of the stream. Hang on, we'll do one more. I mean, I could keep going, right? I could keep going, but you get the idea. Yeah, here. Here it is. Here it is. Hang on. So, Fantasy Strike, Overwatch. Like, like everything is the same, man. No, yeah, no. You got pranked. This is Fantasy Strike. This is Fantasy Strike. This is Overwatch. So yeah, they took some inspiration. Right? Yeah, $30. Now that's not, I mean, right, like a couple people said at least they copied a menu that works. And that is, you know, kind of true, right? It's free to play. Now we're getting to it. Trust me. Be patient. Yeah, Fantasy Strike had some issues. The biggest issue by far, in my opinion, was that it was $30, right? Like, $30 is a big ask for a game like this. It's like, fighting games are already a niche market, right? They're already a niche market. If you were making like an FPS or a card game or a single player game of some kind, then you would probably have a little bit more success. But fighting games are not nearly as popular as some other games. And even within fighting games, you're targeting a niche within that, right? Because Fantasy Strike appeals only to either like people who want to get into fighting games or people who want to play a simplified fighting game, which is not everyone, right? Which is not everyone. So I feel like, considering that you're targeting a niche within a niche, $30 is way too much. And I think I was correct. I said that. I actually streamed this game. Some of you probably remember. I streamed this game when it was new, right? When it fully released. And some of the Fantasy Strike players came into my chat. Remember, I was actually the #1 Fantasy Strike stream on Twitch the day that it came out. Remember that? It was big time. They got really defensive, right? They got quite defensive. They got defensive about the price, and they also got defensive about the menus. They were acting like I was the weird one for like making a big deal out of the menus. They were like, "What? It doesn't matter, man. They just take inspiration. Who cares?" Yeah. And remember, this game there is very little in terms of single player content, right? I don't think there was an arcade mode. I think there was like a story mode, quote, that was the same as like the Street Fighter V story modes. Like what Street Fighter had before the actual story mode, right? Where you just pick a character and it would be like 3 matches against the computer with a couple pictures and voice lines, right? But yeah, the single player content was quite low. If it had more single player content, then maybe you could justify like $20. But I think 30 is, I mean, you could buy a lot. Like, you could buy Them's Fighting Herds for what, 15? You could buy Skullgirls for like $2. You could buy a lot of fighting games for less than $30. You know? 30 was a tall order. And I think that I think I was right about that, because Fantasy Strike, after its release, failed to capture much of an audience, right? Like any game, it had its small dedicated community, right? Any fighting game is almost guaranteed to have that tiny handful of people that just play it forever. You know what I mean? Like any fighting game has that, right? Like they have their Discord server, they play their online tournaments, they have like their little group of people. Fantasy Strike definitely did not succeed in becoming like, a part of the FGC, right? So, recently, as of 2 days ago, they came out with a big announcement from the Fantasy Strike Twitter. Let's pull that announcement up and watch it together. So, as you can see, it got a lot of likes, right? Over 1,000 retweets, over 2,000 likes. That's quite a lot for Fantasy Strike especially. So let's see this announcement. This update is huge. Free to play. All characters unlocked in online casual, online ranked, practice, and versus AI. You may notice a couple modes missing from this list, but we'll talk about it later. All characters are free. 2 new characters. Now this is interesting. Ghosts of Tsushima boys. Right? And look, they put me in Fantasy Strike. Even I'm a character. Doesn't he look just like me? Give him a purple alt. Okay, so we've got cosmetics, practice animations, whatever those are. Sure, pre-fight animations, victory animations, right, fine. And here we go. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Fantasy Plus, eh? What, pray tell, is Fantasy Plus? An optional subscription for more features. Features like what, Serlin? Replays. For the low price of, I think it's $5 a month, you can watch replays in Fantasy Strike with an endless stream of other players' replays. Search for exactly what a revolutionary feature. Available now. Yeah, a subscription for a fighting game. So there you go. There's that was the big announcement that they made. Fantasy Strike is free to play, and if you want, you can pay an extra subscription model for optional features, which it looks like the optional features are basically just replays and a couple costumes. And I'm going to be completely honest with you. When I first saw that, I was like, you know, that's pretty good. I mean, it's kind of weird that they're trying to put a subscription model in a fighting game. But, you know, like, if you get to play all the characters for free and you buy just a subscription model that gives you presumably all the costumes, but then I started to learn more. Yes. Then, remember when we looked at that list of modes available in the free-to-play version? It said you can play, what, online ranked, versus AI, and training mode in the free-to-play version. Now, you may be wondering, I mean, online play includes playing with your friends, right? Like just playing in lobbies? No, it does not. If you get the free version, you cannot play with specific people. You can only play ranked. Yeah, if you want to play your friends, you have to stream snipe them. That is correct. Yeah, you can't even play offline. The free-to-play version, you cannot play offline with people. And you may be thinking, okay, well, how about at least if you already have the game, which I do, right? So, like, I have the game. Maybe I have the game. My friends can get it for free. And then we can just play with each other, right? I'll just invite them because I already have the full game because I bought it, right? Right? Like what One Hit Until Death suggested earlier that we can play together. Turns out that also is not in the cards. They clarified shortly after this announcement that both players have to buy the full game in order for you to be able to play in lobbies. If one person has the game and one person has the free-to-play version, you cannot connect to each other. Which, like, doesn't that defeat the whole point of, like, getting new people into the game? Yeah, they went back on this decision. This decision they went back on. After some, we'll say, stern feedback from the community, they went back on it. But, unfortunately, this is not anywhere near the end of it. And the other decisions, they did not go back on. So let's take a look at what else they decided to do. Let's visit Fantasy Strike's Steam page and explore the next thing they did. So as you can see, it has mixed reviews. This is actually quite an improvement from yesterday. Yesterday, this was at mostly negative, I think, or very negative. This was definitely in the red yesterday. So the decision to allow people to play with their friends made a positive impact. So okay, so let's scroll down and look at what's available for purchase in Fantasy Strike. We have the free-to-play version, of course. We have the soundtrack for $9.99. It's a little steep, considering that there are only like 5 songs on the soundtrack, but okay, sure. It's good music. So you can also buy, here we go, the Fantasy Strike Core Pack for $19.99. So it's $20 instead of $30 for the full version of the game, right? Which is a slight reduction. That's a good call. But then, it's a little obscured right now, but what is the Fantasy Strike Collector's Pack? $99.99. Now, David, what, pray tell, is in the Fantasy Strike Collector's Pack to make it worth $100? Please enlighten me. Let's find out, shall we? Let's see what's in the Fantasy Strike Collector's Pack. Of course, you need the full game in order to play it. This product is not eligible for refund. I bet it's not. Okay, this Collector's Pack gives you the ultimate in Fantasy Strike experience. Get everything in the core pack, plus 13,500 gems, 1 year of Fantasy Plus membership, the high roller costume for Lum the Gambling Panda, and the exclusive Party Time KO effect. And this is just all the stuff that the core pack gives you. The core pack also lets you send and receive direct challenges from friends in both standard and team battle modes. So yeah, you get 1 costume. You get 1 year of Fantasy Plus membership, the Party Time KO effect, and you get 13,500 gems for $100. Now, you might be reading this, and at first you'll be like, wow, that's ridiculous. That's amazing. Like, how could anyone charge for this? And then you'll probably, after a moment, think what I thought, right? You'll probably have the same thought that I did, which is, wait a second. What the hell are gems? Right? What are gems, David? Surely it's not a premium currency when you already have like 3 other microtransaction schemes in your game. If you take a closer look at this menu, you will see a pretty disconcerting store button. And if we click on this button, oh no. No, come on, go back. No. Have I been soft banned? David, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. Let me come back. Let me come back, please. Oh no. Is it cut the feed? Okay, we're back. I don't dare do this stream in the Fantasy Strike category. So, yeah, look at this. The Fantasy Strike store. As you can see, you can buy cosmetics here, but you cannot choose to buy cosmetics. You are given a few random cosmetics every day that you can select from, just like Fortnite, yeah. And I think just like MK11. So notice it's not just costumes, right? Like intro animations. It's also very similar to Overwatch. Yeah, you can't buy the things you want. So if you are wondering why the store is like this, this is to prey on people who are psychologically inclined to fall for this kind of stuff, right? If you have like addictive tendencies, or if you're psychologically prone to these kinds of things, you will get sucked into these stores, right? Because look, so it gives you a random selection every day, and that selection changes every 24 hours, right? So here's how it works. If you're someone like this, you turn on the game, you have your little handful of gems, and you're like, damn, I don't really want this costume, but if it leaves, who knows when it will pop up again. So I really want to buy it now because I don't want to miss it. So you end up spending your gems on it. And then the next day, either the same thing happens, or you actually do see a costume or something that you do really want, and you don't have the gems for it because you just spent your gems on that other thing you didn't really want, but you were too afraid to miss it, right? So you buy more gems, and you know that you can buy gems like nobody's business. Look at this. Does this not look like a garbage mobile game to you? Straight out of frickin' Dungeon Keeper mobile or whatever, right? Yeah, you buy intros. You buy outros, you buy KO effects, you buy costumes, all with gems. Look at this. If my goal was to discourage people from getting into this game mission success, my goal is to talk about this game. And if talking about this game makes people not want to play it, that's not my fault. I am simply presenting this game as it is. Look, we've even got bundles. Oh boy. Here's you can buy a Fantasy Plus subscription. If you get Fantasy Plus, in addition to the replays, wear each character's master costume once they reach level 20. So the costumes you get for Fantasy Plus, you don't even have access to them right away. You have to hit max level, however that is achieved. And of course, let's not forget, double XP, and they'll turn your name green to show your support of ongoing development of the game. Ongoing development that, by the way, has not been confirmed. They have not said that they're making anything else for this game. And in fact, David in the Discord yesterday, because David Serlin has not been quiet in his Discord server, by the way. He has not been quiet at all. He's been very vocal. He's said some wild things. So these stores are specifically designed to target people who are like predisposed to fall victim to them, right? Like, you might look at this store and be like, whatever, it's just cosmetic, I don't really care. I would never buy gems in Fantasy Strike. Obviously, right? Just like, obviously, most people are never going to buy loot boxes in Overwatch, and most people are never going to buy time crystals in Mortal Kombat. But some people do. Some people do. And the people that do buy a lot of them. Because the people that are vulnerable to this kind of thing are really vulnerable to it. So when you make a store like this, it is absolutely predatory. It's predatory, right? This is the excuse that's always given. These items are cosmetic only, give no competitive advantage. People have been trotting out this excuse ever since loot boxes in Overwatch and before then, right? If you don't want it, just don't buy it. It's just cosmetic. It's just cosmetic. If you don't want it, don't buy it. And that has never been a valid argument, because people who have addictive tendencies or are psychologically vulnerable are the ones who will fall prey to this and will end up pouring hundreds or thousands of dollars into this sort of scheme, right? So when you're making a shop like this, you are depending on people to whale for you, right? That's what they're called, right? Whales. The people the few people who dump tons of money into stores like this are referred to as whales by the game publishers. They call them that. They refer to their customers as whales, like they're fish that they're trying to catch and eat because that's genuinely how they see them. So stores like this are absolutely despicable. And if you never knew, now you know. Yeah, like the costumes aren't bad. If they had made it so that you can just get a costume, pick the one you want and get it, even if it was a thing where you had to buy every costume with real money, like microtransactions, I think that would be fine. If they didn't do all the other stuff, right? If there was no Fantasy Plus, and if there was no, collector's edition, and there was no, you have to buy the full game to play with your friends. If all they did was just have all these costumes and cosmetics and just give you the ability to buy them individually, that would be fine. Lots of very successful free-to-play games work that way. And I remember I saw someone in the Discord yesterday be like, hey, at least this game does sell you stuff in the same increments that you buy your premium currency in. So it's not a thing where you end up with just a little bit left over and you have to buy more. And Serlin had the gall, the gall to step forward and be like, thank you. I really appreciate that. Look at the store. That's not how it works at all. There are absolutely costumes that will leave you with some left over. What are they talking about? You buy this, you have 150 left over, and if you want another one, you have to buy 200 gems. But guess what? You can't buy 200 gems. You can only buy them in increments of 1,000. And guess what? So you get your 1,000 gems, right? You go back, you buy 350. So you have 300 left over. 50 gems short of a third one. I guess if I want 50 more gems, I'll just have to buy another 1,000 gems. God, this is grotesque, and it's not going to work. And I'll tell you why it's not going to work. Because, look, for every one person that spends money in this shop, for every one person that buys gems, 99 people will just go play Mortal Kombat. Fortnite can get away with this garbage because it's Fortnite. Fantasy Strike is not Fortnite. People can and will go play something else. Like, Fantasy Strike does not have the market cornered in anything. People are going to take one look at this and be like, fuck off. There are so many fighting games to play right now. There are currently more fighting games available than there have ever been in the history of fighting games. You could play Street Fighter, you could play Tekken, you could play Soul Calibur, you could play Dead or Alive, you could play BlazBlue, you could play Guilty Gear, you could play Under Night, you could play Pokken, right? You could play Grand Blue or Pocket Rumble or whatever. You could buy Skullgirls for $199 with all of its DLC and costumes pre-unlocked. Because remember, it's not just the store, right? Remember that. It's the store and the free-to-play model and the $100 collector's edition and the monthly subscription service. It's like David Serlin just looked at like 5 different microtransaction business models and threw all of them into his game and just hoped that one of them would stick and become profitable. David Serlin, in response to people criticizing his free-to-play store, says, making a game this free is so incredibly risky that I felt it was irresponsible not to use the basically known successful type of store, which is the Fortnite style that we use. It's basically the behavior of people on a mass scale that we can be sad about, but it is what it is. They have chosen this with their dollars. Unquote. Unquote. It's not his fault for putting predatory business practices in his game. It's his customer's fault for being preyed upon. It's his customer's fault for being vulnerable. If they weren't so psychologically targeted by these online stores that have been created specifically to target them, then they wouldn't work so well. Like, that is kind of vile, isn't it? Yeah, this game is fun. That's the worst part. That's the worst part, honestly. Serlin, something else he said in his Discord server, and actually mentioned several times that I saw. It would be really great to have as much as $0 in his current position. It would be great to have as much as $0, which of course means that he is in... I mean, I don't know if it's like him personally. David Serlin, if you haven't put it together, is the person making this game, right? He's the lead developer of Fantasy Strike. Yeah, I don't know if it's him personally or like the company. There's probably a lot of overlap, but it means he's in a lot of debt. I mean, I don't know, man. Like, I obviously have no idea about the inner workings of this game or game development in general, but looking at other games like, you know, Them's Fighting Herds doesn't seem to be in dire financial straits at all. And Them's Fighting Herds was in development for just as long and was surely much more laborious to create. With all those frames of hand-drawn animation, a lot more single-player content. The music, I mean, the music alone, right? The music of Them's Fighting Herds is like wizardry. Yeah, Skullgirls too, right? And Skullgirls, I don't remember how much it was when it launched. Definitely it wasn't $30, right? Like 15 or 20. Probably other projects that flopped, like Yomi. That's a good point, yeah. Because this is not the only thing that David Serlin has been making. He's also made a card game and I think a tabletop game too. And I can't imagine they did very well. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they did. Maybe they did, but I don't think they did. So yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe they, while making Fantasy Strike, were making other things too. But the point is, if this looks like a desperate grab for cash, it probably is. It at least goes a little bit towards explaining why. I don't think it's ever a justification. If it helps to at least explain the motivation, this is probably a pretty desperate attempt to make Fantasy Strike profitable. When, of course, when it was just a $30 fighting game that looked like this, it was not it was not profitable, I'm sure. There's no way that enough people were buying it to offset whatever development costs that they're working with. I don't think this is going to help much. Maybe it'll give them a bit of a cash infusion for the first month or two, but as a long-term sustainable financial model, I really can't see this working. So that's basically it. That's the Fantasy Strike situation. It's funny, but it's also kind of sad because I really liked Fantasy Strike. And all I wanted was for it to be successful so that more people could play it, so that I would have people to play against. But this is not what I wanted, right? This is not the monkey's paw that I asked for.